Well, it's great to be back post World Economic Forum, which is what we're here to discuss today, and just sort of a general chat. The World Economic Forum this year was happening at a critical juncture in relation to what's going on in terms of macroeconomic environments, the geopolitical situation we're seeing, climate sort of having a bigger impact, the cycle of energy, and in tech and innovation sort of at the heart of the post-pandemic realm.
We also need to think that it's a very fluid situation, and whatever we discuss today, in 6 months from now, may not be the case.
Totally agree with you.
Yeah, maybe even not in 6 months, maybe already next week it's a new update there on the world side. So I think it's very interesting, especially to see how the world economic will change. So I'm a bit more on the topic about fair economics. So I don't know what Adam Smith would say about this, who wrote the book, or is like the father of the capitalism, yes. How this has been changed. We look to 1945 until 1990, we had like this, let's say, bipolar world, yeah. Then we had now a unipolar world with the US as a world leader, and now this change again, yeah. So I think that's very interesting times on different and many different perspectives.
What's really going to change the future potentially, or what's going to accelerate that change? Yeah. I'm not going to talk about the metaverse yet, but I want to talk about the quantum computing impact. To me was quite astounding in terms of what's coming. I wasn't really that much into understanding the potential impact of quantum computing that it'll bring to business, to protection of your business infrastructure, critical infrastructure, even to the world of blockchain, and sort of understanding that impact, both from our current environment where we're all dependent on, the trust and security of financial systems and the trust and security of our own, you want to call it IT systems and compliance systems. It's going to be revolutionised in all of this, and it's happening so fast. That impact is becoming much more of okay, we need to go deeper, and what are governments doing about this? What stood out is what China's doing in this space. They're the world's biggest spender in quantum computing. They're spending around about $30 billion a year at the moment, allocated specifically to this area. And it's all on communications, terrestrial and land. Interestingly, the US is spending around about $2 billion. That's a massive difference in terms of where the R&D is going.
The key word of this forum, but also of every forum that's happening, is collaboration. How you put together more forces, more entities to come and see a common goal and be purposeful and intentional. And part of that is also that how do you address people? Because we've seen that you can't do technology without the people, you cannot leverage people without technology. And for me, the most important thing it was that I was very happy to see how many conversations were about people, jobs, skills, what the future is bringing, and how we should actually support people to become better without thinking in which geography they are. Although you need to think geographical limitations in a way that you may have higher population in some of the countries like Nigeria and much smaller one like in Greece, which is where I come from. But you need to think that you have some common threats happening, like what you do with women, who they lost their jobs because of, many of them actually, because of COVID. What you do with jobs that are going to be eliminated because of the advancement of technology, but they're going to be replaced with other jobs that you need to upskill yourself and the people over there. And the third is that how you make these people come into pace as fast as possible so they can have financial independence.
The big thing you're seeing right now, and it's on everyone's minds as leaders and countries, is that there's a lack of talent. The key word of lack of talent.
Huge.
Every sector, every industry, ground up, lack of talent. It's actually not a lack of people, funny enough. The people exist.
You have
the question
7+
is
billion people, actually.
Yeah.
Yes.
And it's that pivoting of talent. What's that, the mechanism that get us there, and how to accelerate that, and then how and where do you fill that in to go after that growth economy opportunity? So
I think about the fair economy there, you touched many points, so I don't know where to start, so maybe just somewhere at the beginning. So first of all, we have to understand how really economic works. And you always, in the last decades, we had a very strong globalization, but the technical innovation process was behind. So I think this has been changed now a bit, also like with upcoming of blockchain, digitalization, quantum, and all these kind of things, it's changing a bit. And I think this is very important that the globalization is in balance with the technical innovation, what we have. Otherwise, we are only running in one direction, and we had this already, you see it in the past, if you look to the history, we had this already a couple times, and in the moment when this gets balanced, I think it's very good. So, but what does this mean, all these new technologies for us and for fair economic? Everyone talks about poverty and all these kind of things, but the reality is that a lot of people are today disconnected from education. They are disconnected from getting access to the financial markets, and I think here it's a very good point to use new technologies like blockchain, maybe like crypto, also other things, to reconnect these people to the economy. And I think this helps definitely to also to create a fair economy. I think if we look for Africa, for example, I mean, the world population grows every year about 80 to 90 million people. So how to include these people in a stable economic process? Yeah, and we already see today the destruction between rich and poor and the different regions. So the one definitely key factor for this is the education, so that young people, talents, future talents, have access to universities, to new scientifics and all those kind of things. The world, and especially through COVID, has been changed. Used to be, I remember in Germany, we had this Stempelkarte, you know, it's like a paper card that you put in and makes ding, So and then the time gets measured when you were really like working and not working, and if how many cigarette breaks you had and all those kinds of things. So I think this time is over. Today we see, especially in Dubai, which has excellent infrastructure, also talents and capital, that a lot of companies are located here, but the people that work around the world. And I think if we look to, I just want to mention here maybe Hariri, the Japanese author, about the 21 lectures about the future, about the working environment. And I think we get completely new, let's say, employment structures or employee structures for the futures, how we organize our workflow, how we organize our productions and all those kind of things.
And that's what fascinated me about when I see Satya talking. He was talking about the evolution of not just Microsoft, but what's happening in society and where things are moving. And the way that they've been able to pivot as an organization at Microsoft, that was quite pertinent, their shift to remote working and how they sort of became quite a really good use case. But I think those kind of leadership attributes, where it's now getting the human element with the innovation element together, to achieve sustainable objectives, both for the corporation and for the industry. I think that's sort of at the heart of some of the things you said there, and that's at the heart of the economy. So when I'm looking at the better business area, there was a lot of these discussions around augmented manufacturing, augmented processes, for example. How do you then protect your critical infrastructure for business and for the country to have a sustainable economic sort of environment where you can grow, not just manage the current challenges and be more financially inclusive, because the future digital economy, which was another sort of topic there, is going to bring on this new generation who's not been banked before, who's not necessarily built online businesses before, but that will be Gen Z. Gen Z who's coming in a majority of the emerging markets, which is Africa, Asia, to an extent, Eastern Europe. That whole gamut of Gen Z. There was one report that came through. $33 trillion of the next 10 years' income is going to be earned by Gen Z. They're going to spend it somewhere, and they're going to obviously create businesses somewhere. And where's that going to be? It's going to be predominantly online, and it's going to be predominantly in these new, let's just say, experiences that industry is going to bring to the table. So that sort of stood out a little bit for me.
Can I say something about Gen Z? By the way, I'm very close to this generation, not because I'm Gen Z, I'm not. I have 2 kids which are in Gen Z, so I see them every day, how they behave, what they expect from life, what they expect from their, career. And you see that, first of all, it's 42% of the population. They are massively spread around and have a very common way of accessing information and understanding and taking decisions, because most of them, not all of them, unfortunately, they're connected. Something that our generation didn't have the benefit for that. That's the one thing. The second thing is that they want things very instantly, so they cannot wait. And that's one of the things that they build experience. They want the best practice as fast as possible, and they want a diversity of revenue streams or experiences or people and communities that are going to be part of that, so they don't stick to one thing. They are diverse and inclusive by definition, by design. And it's a generation that affects us very much, because what we're building now is what they're going to be experiencing very soon, because they become the very productive age group, and they don't have the biases we used to have.
Especially that emergency markets get connected with technologies, or not even technologies, let's say with infrastructure, what helps them to develop their own local solutions for their own problems, what they have. Because I think there are enough, if I look to Africa, there are enough talents already,
Yes.
to have solutions for their, let's say, local problems, if I can name it like this, so they don't need us to create solutions for it. But what they need is the infrastructure and the ability to execute this visions what they have, or the missions at the end. So I think from this side, I agree also that this has been dramatically changed. And also this younger generation, they live somehow already in a kind of metaverse, because they are connected worldwide. So I don't think this is something what can be stopped anymore. Yeah, it get maybe a bit more regulated at the end of the day, but this I think can't be stopped. And I think that's a very good process, because it makes people give them more equal access to resources and to information, but I think it's very important, especially in the emergency markets.
So we need to think a little bit about trust and transparency at the moment as well, because they're very, very important.
Really important point you raised there, because there was this topic, and I've actually noted it down. It's a human right to have data privacy, but it's a rights framework that needs to be put in place, and the measures behind that is the entity that creates the data has to be a trusted entity as well. And so the formation of data and how it's being used, it was quite fascinating, but the dialogue is now centered towards not necessarily, we all permeating data. We have data coming out of every device that we're carrying, unlike this pen. But on a serious note, that is where the opportunity has to start in terms of trust. It's verification, it's the whole KYC, and the attributes behind that, knowing where it's coming from and how it's being presented, but then having control. The idea is to have control of your data, and that's the right. The human right is you control access. And in the health sector, and this was another area that I was looking at, is that breach of data in relation to your health data is a really big issue.
I would like to add one more layer, because I think trust is only also like a middle layer. For me, more or less, the foundation of this is the transparency, because only when something is transparent, then I can see it with my own eyes and I can trust. So I think that's very important. And also here, I think we are on a good way to create technologies which give people the transparency to see what's happened with their data, where the data is coming from, how they get used, what's happened with my personal data. I mean, if you look in the healthcare system today, it's possible, according to your DNA, to say if your child will be a genius or he will get cancer. So for who is interested this kind of data, and how this get used, and should these people then exclude of a healthcare system or should be included in a healthcare system? These are ethic standards what we have to set with these new technologies, and I'm sure this will be a long way, because there are always different economy interests in this as well.
when we're talking about the metaverse, for example, the immersive experiences, it could be a game changer in terms of how it's approached and utilized to address mental health issues in this new world that we're all experiencing now. And so that came out actually in a dialogue specifically in that area. You know, there is augmented reality experiences in terms of servicing in certain sectors, like in the health sector, remote operations or remote training, all those kind of contexts. But what was interesting for me is how do you approach, and this was one of the dialogues, which is how do you approach use of immersive experiences in the metaverse to then interact and continue interaction with those who are having these challenges. And it could be whatever it may be. It could be depression, it could be anxiety, whatever, right? So that's really a game changer in terms of how we can curate those experiences. Obviously, at the heart of the future economy has to have those touch points with government services, with healthcare services, with even education now evolving to this space, and scale. So from a business perspective, that has to be embedded in there. And the metaverse is part of that. And this is really interesting. Actually, the UAE Minister of AI, Digital Economy and Remote Working participated in that panel discussion, which was with some industry leaders. And that gives you sort of the angle of where we are. And we're quite fortunate being in the UAE that we have that visionary approach and that active approach to be part of that dialogue.
For the mental health, I would like to add a couple of things. The one thing is that we finally can talk about that without feeling uncomfortable.
Absolutely.
Which is something which, for me, the being able to talk about something that is really deep in you and affects you in so many ways, but you don't dare to talk about that, and being able to say, you know, I don't feel very well, I have this issue or that issue, and you can name it, it's one step further, which I love it. The second thing is that technology can help so much people to access mental health solutions or express what they're going through, you know, which is amazing because it actually demystifies and make it simpler the way that someone can get help, support.
At the moment, still, let's say, the people who use the metaverse, they still live in a completely different world, as people who providing the raw materials for the metaverse, If I just think where we get all our raw materials from Africa and from South America, and I think it's very important that one topic is fair trade, for example, that the people get paid accordingly to what they need or what the standards are and also to the regulations. But also here it's so we have really to take care about to see that we're not getting rich and poor, and on the other side, high technology, metaverse, living in a metaverse, healthy forever, and on the other side, people who can just not afford it. They maybe not even know about this technology.
Completely,
So and I think we have to somehow build here bridges between these worlds. Otherwise, we get different economic systems at the end of the day. I mean, one of the main topics in Davos was also how to storage value in the future. Because, how people in Africa, for example, if they have cash, let's say, if they have money, so how they can secure this? Because they have high violence, they have no bank to bring it. Bank transaction fees are too high. They not even can transfer the money somewhere. So I think there are a lot of, we need a lot of more of innovation solutions for these countries, for the emergency markets. I
mean, there's 8 billion people on Earth, right? 4 billion people online. Of the 4 billion people that are online, less than 0.5% is probably even engaged in this real online economic opportunity. And whether that's Web3 or whether that's e-com, is still a very significant part of the global population, and in the emerging markets even less than that number, which is actually interacting and understanding how to interact in this context. But there will be a leap, and that leap is going to be the same way that Africa leaped from no connectivity to mobile. They didn't go to, obviously, the intermediary, and that's happening now in terms of creativity of applications, creativity of platforms. I mean, a lot of these new entities are being born out of there, but that needs to be accessed. There needs to be more FDI coming in, foreign direct investment, and that's another big part of the dialogue, which it can't just be sort of lip service collaboration. It needs to be tangible financial investment and export of talent as it matures from there into other markets. So the next Davos is going to be in January. And what's interesting is that a lot of the themes that we're looking at, do you think they're going to be relevant, or is there other themes that need to be sort of more laser focused on, which is not being addressed now but needs to be addressed moving forward? Any ideas or thinking around that?
I think we're going to have the same topics, at least as the themes were discussed. I hope the war will end, and I do believe that from commitment to action, that was the underlining for this one is going to be from action to deliverables. So I want to see some deliverables, at least in one or two of the main areas that we were discussing this time.
I also would agree that the topics will be the same, more or less. I don't think that we get out of this crisis until January. I think we will be in the middle of the crisis at this time. And I would wish to have more execution in all of these topics. When I reviewed let's say the video streams and everything from the World Economic Forum, then there was a lot of, let's say, ideas and how to bring things forward. But at the end, always the question is, okay, we need to come all to like one conclusion somehow from the content. But then the next question is for me always, okay, if I have an opinion about something and we're deciding something, then we should also like execute it. What I would like to see more, it's about how this new, let's say, a multipolar order in what we get in the world, how this will be even maybe help to develop different ecosystems or economic area regions, which are able to interact with each other more. Because it's maybe I don't know if it's an intelligent example, but I would like to bring it. The Mayas, they had their own mathematics system, and they could even more detailed on a mathematical side measure, for example, the distance between planets. Even with our mathematics today, we are not able to do it as they did it. So maybe this multipolar economic zones in the future give us the opportunity to develop even better solutions, from different perspectives for the new topics, what's coming up, environment, health, fair economy, education, all those kinds of things. Because I think there is no really right and wrong. It's all a very individual solution for an individual topic at the end.
I agree with both of you. I mean, it's the themes are probably going to be continuous because they're so broad, but actions and deliverables and real substance, when you're getting so many leaders together, it's a great opportunity to decide on things as frameworks, but also to put together and commit teams within organisations and government entities to go and deliver on. Because every local economy now, over the next 6 months, is going to look inwards and say, are we sustainable? Do we have food security? Do we have energy security? Can we be efficient in our infrastructure to be able to then provide those services with the addressing of this issue around inflation?
And we're going to be here in January to discuss about what the progress has been, and looking forward to hear back from you with any kind of questions or comments you have for today's conversation.